Chelsea 2, Fulham 0. And how is it that we have bought so many players and somehow still have depth issues? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today we are going to do a little review of the Chelsea-Fulham game that happened today in the Premier League. And you know, a win is good, man. A win is always good. 3 points on the board. At this point, you know, that's 7 points from 3 games. That Crystal Palace game was particularly tricky at the start, so not a bad return at all for the first few games, right? You know, we're in front of the likes of Man City now, for instance, who obviously lost against Tottenham. So it's a bit of a tough one, though, man. It's a bit of a tough one. There's quite a lot to get into today. It was a good win. It was a dig in, gritty win rather than like a complete domination one, right? But before we get into it, guys, if you are enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honor of liking and sharing the video. Subscribe to the channel. Please click that button, man, because I am on the road to 1,000 subs and I can taste it. Or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so we'll start with the lineup, and I was pretty close in the lineup, man. Again, Gusto started this game in place of Reece James, and that was the only thing I got wrong in my match preview, but the lineup is as follows. It was Sanchez in goal, Malo Gusto at right back, Tosin and Trevor Chalobah in central defence, although they were swapped over this time, and Chalobah was actually playing on the right side of the defence. Tosin was still in the middle, and Marco Correa played on the left, largely as like a left-sided centre-back and not quite as much inverted midfield stuff today. Midfield pivot of Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. Now, there was something interesting in that because there was a tweet that came out yesterday saying yesterday was the first time Caicedo had trained in a week, and he's maybe starting to feel the ramifications of all of this football he's been playing. And bearing in mind how many injuries we're getting at the moment, that was a real struggle. I did call that in my original match preview, but on the stream last night with the Blue Lounge, we actually differed the lineup a little bit. But ultimately, Maresca went with it, so Caicedo must have been feeling okay. The attacking midfield three was Pedro Neto on the left, João Pedro in the middle, and Esteval Willian got his start on the right, which of course means that Liam Delap started up top. So that was basically an unchanged 11 that we put out against West Ham. Yeah, that was an unchanged 11 that went out against West Ham. I think the Reece James thing, the reason for that is probably because he's almost definitely going to play for England in the international break. So that is probably just limiting the amount of football he's going to play. If he's going to get played in the England game and we play him now, then maybe that's just too much football in a short space of time. He did come on at the end of the game and played in defence, but ultimately I thought, okay, I do sort of understand where we're going from in that respect. So quick summary of the first and second halves, right? So obviously, the first thing that's really, really noteworthy is talking about is that in the 14th minute, Liam Delap looked like he suffered a hamstring injury. He was holding his hamstring. He pulled up. He just got the ball in the box or in and around the box and looked like he could have made something happen. He'd been playing reasonably well up until that point as well. He was looking aggressive and bullish, and it was like, yeah, cool, Liam Delap's up for it today. But he pulled up with a hamstring, sat down almost instantly. So that's a bit of a worry, right? Because we only had one striker pretty much for the last 2 years. I guess you can count Christopher Nkunku as an option for that, but largely it was Pedro Neto and Tyreek George who were filling that in that position for us. Now, the slightly confusing thing that I want to get into a little bit today, Liam Delap goes off in the 14th minute, and what you would have assumed would happen is, okay, Jamie Gittins gets brought on, João Pedro goes up top, Esteval goes in the middle, right? That seemed like normally what you'd kind of see, but what actually happened was Tyreek George got pulled on as the number 9 or false 9 as it might be, because he didn't really play a really number 9-y kind of role. So the questions that are raised from that is like the depth thing is obviously still an issue. So do we actually have enough depth at striker? Is letting Nicholas Jackson go to Bayern Munich a bad idea after all? Let me know what you think about that in the comments. The other thing that's a bit weird, though, is that it was Tyreek George that was brought on, right? Because Tyreek George, as far as we're concerned, is on his way out. There's been lots of really in-depth advanced talks with Roma. They're just sort of haggling on the fee. But is this a bit of a call to action from Enzo Maresca being like, keep this guy around, man, I want to keep him? He has gotten like a lot bigger, do you know what I mean? So he definitely looks like physically more able to play that role than before, but I don't know, man. It just feels a bit weird, doesn't it? Like, bearing in mind, we've literally been talking about selling him for the last, like, however many weeks. There was Red Bull Leipzig news, and obviously recently it's been Roma. And apparently all it's, we're just trying to agree a fee and sell-on clause. And once that's done, he looked like he was going to be on his way out. But if he's getting pulled on, instead of putting João Pedro up top in that situation, is that Enzo Maresca being like, my squad balance isn't how I'd like it? Is that kind of a shot to the directors and the brass from Enzo Maresca saying, look, man, this is what I have to do in this situation? So are we starting to see some politics? Do you know what I mean? Obviously, we've already seen Maresca kind of come out and not argue with the brass in public, but, say, I want a centre-back when Levi Colwill went out as well, and obviously he played Achiampong in that first game against Crystal Palace, didn't he, as well? And that, again, might have been a similar sort of thing. So, yeah, man, Tyreek George came on. A couple of bright moments throughout the game, but honestly, he was mostly just really, really a passenger. It was actually a really disappointing performance from him at the end of the day. And look, striker's not his natural position. Obviously, normally he's been a winger for the most part, right? But yeah, so that's the first sort of worrying thing that we need to talk about in the game. The second thing was, not a worrying thing for us because ultimately it didn't end up happening, but Fulham scored. Fulham scored in the 21st minute via 18-year-old Josh King, who looks like a baller, by the way. He's looking really, really good. We were really lucky with this one, I think, and this is going to be a hot topic of discussion. Now, if you watched the game, I'd really love to know what you think about this in the comments. So essentially what happened is Josh King scored a goal, but it was ruled out because of a supposed foul by Muniz on Trevor Chalobah, right? And there was a lot of talk in the commentary about that he couldn't have done anything else. So basically what happened is Muniz did like a little spin move, and when he kind of turned around, he ended up putting one foot squarely on the foot of Trevor Chalobah, and it did look painful and it did look a little bit dangerous. But I do kind of understand from the Fulham perspective, if you make that kind of move, there's only so many places your feet could go. And the commentary were kind of arguing that maybe Trevor Chalobah was actually at fault for that, for putting himself in that position while that was happening. Ultimately, what ended up happening after a lengthy VAR check, one of two in this game, by the way, because there was literally a total 17 minutes in the first and second half of extra time because of all these VAR checks. Ultimately, VAR ruled it off. One thing I do like that we are doing in the Premier League now is when these VAR checks are happening, the refs are like announcing the decision. We saw a bit of that in the Club World Cup and we're seeing it now. I think that's a really good idea, just so we've got a bit of an idea of what the decisions are, why they're being made. And that probably will have come off the back of last season, because the VAR review for last season in the Premier League found that 18 mistakes had been made. I wouldn't have said this one was a mistake, but ultimately it wasn't called by the ref in the moment and VAR pulled it back. So the ref did have the opportunity to go with his gut instinct, right? And it was a foul. Do you know what I mean? It was a foul. And this is kind of why it's not a mistake, because had we have had a different ref, he might have called that as a foul straight away. And, that had just been it. And the goal would have been disallowed from the off. Or the play would have been stopped before it even got there. But what did, in fact, end up happening is VAR called it back. They had a big look at it, and ultimately it was disallowed. So that was a breath for us, right? Because, truth be told, Fulham were looking pretty good in the first half, man. One thing I haven't said yet, but I absolutely need to say, is Fulham deserve their flowers for this game. They played really well, especially in the first half. They didn't just put 10 men behind the ball like Crystal Palace did. It wasn't just a horrible low block that was really difficult for us to get through. They were trying to push. They were trying to play kind of fast counter-attacking football. They weren't really concerned too much about possession, but like I say, they weren't just piling men behind the ball either. So got to give it to Fulham. In the first half especially, they played a really, really good game, and they will be gutted that the goal didn't stand, because it was a great goal from a young player from their academy. I assume that he's 18 years old. I would assume that he was an academy player. So the rest of the first half was pretty sticky and stodgy like that. Fulham actually had, by like the 38th minute, Fulham had actually had more chances than we had. We had a couple of good chances, but not good enough, right? It wasn't like the Crystal Palace's game as well, where João Pedro was getting a lot of the ball. Like, João Pedro was really, really all over it, but ultimately wasn't able to make anything happen. So we kind of go through this savage first half sort of thing, and eventually we get a corner. Enzo Fernandez puts it in straight on João Pedro's noggin. It goes in the goal. It was a great goal. Really, really good goal from João Pedro. And that brings him to 2 goals and 2 assists in 3 games. 4 goal contributions in 3 games. So João Pedro is starting to look like he is going to be one of our talismans this season. Absolutely. And it was a breath of fresh air, man. Like I say, it was a real relief for Chelsea fans, because it was literally the last move of the first half as well, because like I said, we had 8 minutes because of that VAR check, and it was actually in the 9th minute that the goal happened, and the corner was the last thing that happened. The whistle blew straight afterwards. So we go into the end of the first half 1-0 up, but Maresca has got a conversation to have with these boys, right? Because we are not playing well enough. 100% we weren't playing well enough. Now, like I say, for me, man, Tyreek George just probably wouldn't have been who am I? Like, I'm no one. I'm not the manager, and obviously Enzo Maresca knows a lot more about football than I do. But when Tyreek George has got 1 foot out the door, is the right thing to do to bring him on to be your striker in this absolutely must-win game to see us in good stead before we go into the international break. Do you know what I mean? So the second half was definitely very different, right? I think that goal probably took the wind out of Fulham's sails a little bit. We had a lot more possession. We dominated a lot more. Things were generally looking a lot better. And there was the penalty, right? So this was the next big VAR thing. That happened in the 56th minute, right? So props to Trevor Chalobah, because he basically went for a shot. It smashed Ryan Sessegnon in the arm, and obviously they called for the handball. So this VAR check went on for a really, really long time. And what was kind of weird about it is they were checking everything up until the point of the handball to make sure there wasn't like a potential foul or something or another handball that had happened beforehand that would allow them to say this happened first, so that one doesn't matter because Chelsea were already in the wrong. And this is why this VAR check took a particularly long time. It was a little bit worrying because they were trying to see if João Pedro had handballed it or someone had fouled someone in the build-up before the handball had happened, and they went over it again and again and again. It didn't happen. So eventually, and what that tells you is from the off, they were like, yeah, this is 100% a handball. This is going to be a penalty. So let's just make sure that all the other stuff is cleaned up first. So it did end up being a penalty, and Enzo Fernandez took it, which was interesting. I thought João Pedro might, because he was the designated penalty taker for Brighton last season and obviously had a really good record, scored 5 penalties in the Prem last year. But Enzo Fernandez took it and buried it. So we're 2-0 up by this point, and that was kind of it, man. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, there was a load of subs. Who did we have? Jamie Gittins came on for Esteval Willian, and right towards the end, Andre Santos and Reece James came on for Tyreek George and Pedro Neto. So that was the really last defining moment in the game. We did look like we were pretty close to getting a third a few times, and after that second goal, we gained a lot of confidence, right? So, a bit of a difficult one, man, bit of a difficult one. So what I will do now is I'll go into player performance. I'm not going to go through every single player as I normally do, because I've noticed that makes these videos quite long, and I will try to keep it a little bit shorter than that. So standouts for me, I mean, we'll talk a bit about Robert Sanchez. Robert Sanchez was like a 6.5 out of 10 today. Do you know what I mean? Not amazing, but not terrible by any stretch. The defense in general was really good. Big shout out from me to Trevor Chalobah, who I think was awesome today. He was really, really good. And Malo Gusto. Malo Gusto played really, really well today. He played very considered football in that right back position. Wasn't getting all over the place. Obviously, that would have been instruction from Maresca. But Malo Gusto was good today, 100%. In the absence of Reece James starting the game, it's always a little bit of a worry, isn't it? Because Malo Gusto can be a bit erratic sometimes. But no, 100%. Malo Gusto had a wicked game and looked like he was starting to develop a really nice little relationship with Esteval Willian on that right side. There was a couple of little 1-2s and little passes and little moments where they were looking for each other, and one particular moment that I absolutely loved where Malo Gusto passed it to Esteval passed it back up to Malo Gusto, who instantly backheeled it to Esteval to try and get him to get a shot on goal. So I really love to see that, absolutely love to see that, and we're not really going to see that kind of thing from Reece James, do you know what I mean? Because Reece James, obviously, probably because we're protecting him, he's not that byline guy anymore, do you know what I mean? And he's not running up and attacking as much. So it was really good to see that we do have an option like that in Malo Gusto. He did really well. Moises Caicedo had a good game, got a yellow card in the first half, but ultimately, despite being a little bit worried yesterday that he might not play at all because he's only just started training again, had a really good game. Enzo Fernandez, for me, was mostly a passenger, apart from his 2 massive contributions, which were the assist from the corner for João Pedro's goal, and obviously he scored the penalty. And I've had this conversation about Enzo Fernandez before in some of my older videos. The thing about Enzo Fernandez is he doesn't always, like, on his best day, he looks unbelievable, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the time, he feels like a bit of a passenger, but he can just pop up and make things happen. And that's kind of what happened today, do you know what I mean? He obviously hadn't played particularly well. He was all right off the ball, but on the ball, he'd kind kind of been struggling a bit. Then he got the corner, popped it straight onto João Pedro's head, gets himself an assist. All right, cool, because he scored in the last game, he's got an assist in this one. His numbers are already starting to go up, do you know what I mean? So that's wicked. But yeah, and then obviously he scored the penalty as well. So that's, two goal involvements from Enzo Fernandez. But he just didn't necessarily play that well throughout the whole of the game, man. So I found that a bit interesting. Attacking three, Pedro Neto was good. 6, 7 out of 10. Nothing amazing from him, but not bad at all. João Pedro was a lot better today than he was against Crystal Palace, for sure, because he was able to get a lot more on the ball than he was the last time. Do you know what I mean? So, and obviously he got his goal, which changed the momentum of the game for us. João Pedro is looking like the new talisman of the team. And when Cole Palmer is really, really fit, it's really exciting to see what they are going to be able to do together. Esteval Willian definitely struggled a little bit today, but had really good, bright moments, right? So I think the thing is, we can't put too much pressure on Esteval. We need to let him develop his game. He is developing his game. He'll be getting used to the physicality of the Premier League. But even with that, and being a really young lad, he's still finding those little moments of magic, right? And still trying to make things happen. So not an amazing game from Esteval today, but really, really good signs to say that he might just explode at some point. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously, like I say, Liam Delap was looking all right for 14 minutes, pulled up. Tyreek George, didn't really rate him, man. Didn't really rate him. Like I say, not a huge amount to talk about. Andre Santos was bright when he came on. Reece James is Reece James. He's kind of always good. Jamie Gittins came on the earliest on the 68th minute, had about half an hour. Didn't really get involved in the game much at all, to be honest. So again, a bit difficult. I'm hoping that the international break will give Maresca, because obviously Jamie Gittins hasn't been called up to the England squad. I'm hoping this gives Maresca a bit more time to work with Jamie Gittins and get that instruction in his head about what he wants him to do, and hopefully we can see a bit more from him after the international break. So ultimately, the win was good, but the scoreline was a little bit flattering. Shout out to Sadiq from Worldwide Chelsea, who I was on the stream with last night, and I think I might be streaming with tonight on the Blue Lounge. He called this and said, we were kind of like 3-1. That was our prediction. Obviously, my prediction in my preview was 3-1. He was like, I think this is going to be a tougher game than that. And he was absolutely right. If anything, like I say, just from watching the game, 2-0 was a little bit flattering. But ultimately, that's 7 points from 3 games at the start of the season, going into the international break. Not a terrible place to be at all. So, wicked. Let's go. Come on, you Blues. I'm going to wrap the video up there, guys. Thanks very much for sticking around if you did. If you are around tonight, come and chat to us on the stream, because we'll be talking more transfer news. We'll be talking about the game. We'll be talking about the injury crisis, because that's the thing that we need to start thinking about right now. Our players are literally dropping like flies. So if you're around tonight, hop on over to the Blue Lounge and we'll chat with you in the comments over there. Nice one, guys. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day, and I will catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.